Laser weapons are the future of war, a trump card for any army. Lasers have long won the hearts of science fiction writers and filmmakers, and later many civilian industries, from medicine to communications. But the dream that lasers are the future, namely of war, remained just a dream that could not be realized. Could not be realized before. Today we'll figure out why this trump card has finally appeared, how it provoked an arms race, and whether it can lead to a real military revolution. Laser weapons are on the horizon. Although at first glance a laser seems to be just an unusual flashlight, it is a slightly more complex thing. It is based on the phenomenon of so-called light amplification by stimulated emission of radiation, also known as laser. This is a curious phenomenon in physics. If you collide a molecule or atom with a photon, they go into an excited state. After some time, everything should calm down. But if you immediately launch another photon at them, both attacking photons will be ejected from the atom, and they will have similar parameters: energy, phases, and direction of movement. If you do this with a multitude of particles, you can cause a kind of light avalanche. And if you put mirrors in this volume and lock the avalanche, it will not only become even stronger, but will also acquire a clear direction. And in the end, we open a small crack in the mirror, the avalanche breaks out, and we see that exact non-scattered beam of multiply amplified light. Naturally, the use of lasers for military purposes was thought about as soon as they appeared. The possibilities were impressive. A laser beam with sufficient power is capable of burning and cutting. It is not a projectile or a missile, it is simple, fast, and cheap. An even greater bonus was that the beam is a current moving at the speed of light. It is not affected by wind or gravity, and it is almost impossible to dodge. You just aim and shoot. During the Cold War, the United States and the USSR pursued a variety of military projects with different platforms: stationary, mobile, airborne, seaborne, and spaceborne. The brightest projects were those in the sky. The American NKC-135, a modified Boeing C-135 with a laser mounted on it, was capable of shooting down, for example, air-to-air missiles. The Soviet A-60, based on the Il-76 platform, was an air defense system designed to destroy high-altitude targets, such as reconnaissance balloons. The apogee of the laser race were the so-called Star Wars in the 1980s, when both countries rushed to create weapons for use in space. At that time, truly impressive projects were born, such as the American Excalibur, a network of satellites that were supposed to shoot down enemy ballistic missiles with a powerful beam, or the Soviet Polus, a huge battle station capable of using lasers to both shoot down ballistic missiles and attack enemy satellites. But with the end of the Cold War, most of these projects were closed. A new attempt to bring them back into service can be called the famous Boeing YAL-1, which was developed in the 2000s with the actualization of the topic of missile defense, but it also did not last long. Of course, all these works were closed not because of the military's great pacifism. Lasers have not only advantages, but also disadvantages. The efficiency of the beam depends on the environment, with all its clouds, fog, and dust that scatter it. In addition, laser devices were technologically imperfect, very expensive, bulky, and heavy. Flying platforms were that big for a reason. In addition, there was not enough power to hit protected targets, and as you can see, most of the projects initially concerned air and missile defense. And given all the problems, many logically decided that classic weapons are handling these tasks quite well. Why pull a truck with a laser cannon behind you if there is a good old Stinger in your trunk? But in our time, everything has changed. Electronics and energy tech have made a huge step forward. And this has turned upside down the world of offensive measures, which have become simpler and more accessible. A huge number of unmanned aerial vehicles, reconnaissance aircraft, quadcopters, kamikaze drones, and an ocean of different missiles have appeared. And now, classic air defense systems have shown their disadvantage: the cost of use. For example, the Vulcan Phalanx, the famous 6-barreled anti-aircraft cannon, fires projectiles that cost about $30 each. It would seem that $30 is not that much, but a gun with a rate of fire of 4,500 rounds per minute is capable of firing a decent month's salary into the sky in a couple of seconds. The same is true for missiles. A shot from even the simplest portable systems can cost $100,000, while the price tag for more serious missiles, such as those used on Patriots, is already measured in millions. When these systems fought cruise missiles, fighters and bombers, this was justified, because the targets were few and much more expensive. But when homemade missiles and drones went on the attack, the concept began to fail. Situations have become frequent when expensive air defense missiles were used against devices comparable in price to mobile phones. This is simply not economically viable. And the ammunition for these complex and expensive systems is much more difficult to replenish than the stock of drones. There is a risk of overloading the air defense, which will cease to cope with attacks simply because at some point it will have nothing to shoot with. And then everyone remembered lasers. Yes, most of their shortcomings are still there, but their influence has decreased. The development of electronics and energy tech has given birth not only to drones. Lasers have become more advanced and at the same time accessible. The equipment has become cheaper, more compact, and more efficient. The advantages have become much more obvious. Accuracy, speed, and interception efficiency make them an excellent weapon against small and maneuverable targets. At the same time, the requirements for power are no longer so strict, because in most cases it is not ballistic missiles that need to be fought, but all sorts of smaller stuff. Yes, this weapon is still complex and expensive to produce, but in use it costs pennies, which pays for itself many times over. Perhaps the moment has finally come when the laser has become truly promising. And where there is opportunity, there is victory. And before victory, there is always a race of arms. Right now, different countries around the world, the USA, China, Russia, European countries, and many others, in different amounts of course, but are seriously investing in projects that promise a military revolution, on land, at sea, in the sky, and in space. The most pressing issue at the moment is lasers and ground-based systems for defensive equipment and infrastructure, which suffer the most from the invasion of cheap drones and missiles. To combat them, systems of different types are being created, from individual units that can be installed on vehicles, something like defensive aid suites, to specialized air defense systems, mobile and stationary. How does it work? Lasers equipped with modern guidance systems and controlled by artificial intelligence, even at low power, can blind sensors and homing heads, which will radically reduce the efficiency of precision weapons such as javelin anti-tank systems and guided bombs. It is difficult to hit the target if you can't see anything. More powerful lasers will be able to destroy projectiles, missiles, and light aircraft that attack them. The era of dominance of the ubiquitous kamikaze drones may end. And the era of armored vehicles, which in recent years have been practically buried, may return. More powerful lasers on their own mobile platforms or even stationary ones will be able to protect important objects, acting as a full-fledged air defense. With a low cost and high rate of shooting, they can be much more effective than missiles and cannons. The disadvantage of ground-based lasers is still the same: dependence on the environment and reduced range. So, at least for now, lasers remain effective at short ranges, leaving long-range defense to missiles. With the advent of laser weapons, aviation will see no less significant changes. Something like this should not be expected, but you will not be disappointed. Unlike their ground counterparts, airborne ones must be compact and lightweight. They will be installed on airplanes and helicopters and protect them from attacking missiles by blinding or destroying them. This alone can revolutionize the concept of aerial warfare. Survivability will increase dramatically. Only serious systems will be able to shoot down these machines. Light missiles may prove ineffective or will have to be launched in salvos in large quantities. And man-portable missile systems like the Stinger may become the thing of the past. In addition, lasers can be used even against other aircraft at short distances. They won't be able to shoot them down, of course, but they can harm the sensors and the pilot. At the same time, the speed of rotation of the emitter and the movement of the beam makes maneuvering almost pointless. No matter how much you spin, you won't dodge. Dogfight will begin to resemble the battle of cannon-armed ships of the past, or spaceships from the movies, with a competition of who will break whom faster. This will lead to serious changes in the requirements for the aircraft themselves. Some laser weapon projects are planned to be implemented on modern fighters, but most likely these will be compromise solutions. These machines were not designed for this, their engines are unlikely to be able to power high-energy systems, and there is little free space for equipment there. Lasers will be fully implemented on future models, which from the very beginning should take all this into account. In principle, we see similar trends. Concepts, for example, of 6th-generation fighters suggest advanced engines and greater electrical generation, and they are often noticeably larger than modern machines. The effect of laser defense systems on bombers may be curious. They may once again resemble their mighty ancestors from World War II, flying fortresses, only with lasers instead of machine guns. Considering the dimensions of the aircraft, decent lasers with multiple emitters. If we add stealth technology and powerful electronic warfare to this, a target that everyone has long considered simple may turn out to be a real problem. Laser weapons at sea stand apart and have their own specifics. First of all, there is a wider range of threats. Small drones are not so dangerous for the fleet, while anti-ship missiles, some of which are hypersonic, pose a much greater threat. Defense against such weapons requires the use of much more powerful lasers. And what a coincidence! Military ships are much larger than ground vehicles or aircraft, and they can afford to deploy systems that are larger in size, weight, and accordingly more powerful. There are also problems. The sea is a place with a rather aggressive environment. Salt water, high humidity, and dense air currents do not help lasers at all. The beam is not a projectile or a missile, you can't throw it over the horizon, and the curvature of the Earth can limit the range of fire if the target is pressed to the surface. In addition, a powerful laser requires a lot of energy, and most modern ships did not foresee the emergence of such a consumer. New ships do. If you look at descriptions of future and currently implemented projects, you can see that their power plants are excessively powerful. This is done, among other things, with an eye to the future. So, on the one hand, the Navy is a more inertial system, and new technologies will take longer to be implemented. On the other hand, the coolest guns will definitely be there, because the threats are serious, and they are protecting extremely valuable assets. There is no point in denying it now. Laser weapons have finally moved from fantasy to reality. Yes, lasers are still quite complex, expensive, and few in numbers. Yes, they still have many limitations, but they have arrived. They are not the ultimate weapon that will replace everything else, but another trump card that can seriously affect the entire layout of the game. And then, who knows? Comment what you think about this new trump card of war, and subscribe so as not to miss new videos. The world is changing so quickly that it is difficult to imagine what awaits us on the horizon.